Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Sethurst in Los Angeles.
And I'm Alison Norrington in London, and welcome to the Story Hour.
Be sure to like us, subscribe, and hit that bell if you want to know when the next episode is coming. The Story Hour sits at the intersection of storytelling and technology. We bring you the story behind the stories, how it's written, how it's produced, how it's distributed, and even the personal stories behind the storytellers themselves.
We talk with the master writers, producers, directors, authors, and technologists, covering it all from film and television to literature, virtual and augmented reality, and more, as well as the innovations in production technology and distribution that are changing the how of storytelling.
Our guest today creates enigmatic worlds and characters using traditional media with VR and AR technology. With years of experience and a background in creating campaigns for brands, designing user experiences, and teaching, Juliana indulges her experimentation itch by painting and creating projects that evoke discovery, play, and immersion.
She's participated in both traditional and VR painting shows and has offered instruction on what constitutes good visual design. She's passionate about why it's important to include diverse characters in this new art form and hopes to bring inspiration through her own artwork. She's one of very few fabulous Tiltbrush artists, creator of Jingleville, creator of Shriek and Sinisteria, creator of a giant orange fish, and can be found at splashmango.com. We are excited to speak and to welcome the art artist, Juliana Lowe.
Welcome, Juliana Lowe!
Hey! I can't believe I'm on here. Thanks, you guys. It's great to be here.
Well, we're so thrilled to have you. We've all, in the interest of full disclosure, we've all known each other for quite some time. And I have to say, over the years, watched each other learn and grow and become masters in certain ways. And certainly, Juliana, I mean, just been following your work on Facebook and online and just am blown away. And I said to Allison, why haven't we had Juliana on? So here you are.
Thanks. It's been quite the journey, right? So
Indeed
I'm all
it
excited
has.
to share what I have to share with you and with everyone else.
That's great. And I think you have a lot to share because when I said in the intro, one of a very few fabulous tilt brush artists, I genuinely mean that because I feel a lot of work that at least I've seen, which doesn't mean it's like conclusive to everybody that they've seen, but it kind of feels half done. But yours never feels half done. Yours is actually very detailed and quite deep. So I wonder if you could just, I don't know, maybe talk a little bit about how did you get into that, like as an artist to transition into using tilt brush?
Wow. So I guess, well, I've been a traditional gallery artist for some time. And so a lot of my work dealt with, the traditional works, paper and pen. But then also, I'm also an instructor and I taught, UX, UI, and game design. So, seeing all that playfulness and all that work kind of converge together kind of created this spark that, hey, you know what? I'm going to actually move my artwork from this kind of reality to a brand new one. And when I touched the brush, I just knew it. I knew that it was the right thing for me.
It was so interesting to me because, and I'm sure Allison, I've played inside a tilt brush. I have like no art talent. I cook, but I have no art talent. And it was so challenging for me to figure it out. And I thought, well, does an artist who's worked in traditional, do they get immediately what the opportunity was, or are you just a super fast learner?
No, well, the funny thing is, I'm really, one of my superpowers is really understanding the world through a spatial lens. So, I mean, I was experimenting before with 360 video and, trying to figure out how does this all work in a 360 space. So by the time I jumped into Tilt Brush, it wasn't much of a stretch to understand that, hey, you can paint things from the front, the center, the top, and from behind.
But that's a completely different approach for an artist, isn't it? To create actually something in 3D. Like you can create a sculpture, right? If you're a potter or some kind of model maker, but for an artist that work on a flat space and creates often a sense of three-dimensionality through the use of light and shade and shadows, it's completely like you're considering the whole 360. You can walk around and move these characters around. So did that open up things for you as an artist that you were like, oh my God, I never thought of the back of this thing. You draw a character and suddenly how, you're considering more than just that one-dimensional flat image, aren't you?
Yeah, but I think also because I started earlier in my career as a concept artist. And so when you're working as a concept artist, you've got a character and you already have to imagine what it looks like in the front, the top, the back, and spinning it around and delivering all your, and I'll call them assets, into a world build that you already imagined in your head. So that's what I mean. Like it wasn't such a stretch theory, technically speaking, but there were some problems a little bit when I first jumped in. By the way, I first jumped in back in 2016, but then there was a few things that I was dealing with, and then I really got introduced to it again in 2019. And when I hit 2019, it was like I'm done. I'm ready to go.
I can understand your perspective in this because even as a VR filmmaker, as a producer, to
Right.
kind of see things in your head and see how the story world looks. I call it like it's lucid dreaming, and so I can see that the analogy carries over. For me, it was the learning of the technology to how to bring what was in my head out onto the screen, which I must admit I have had great directors that have known how to do that and helped me. Um, and I guess it's the same on your part because now learning this technology to take what's in your head. And did you always see? And I think we should show the audience an example in a very short moment. But did you always? You said you predisposed towards spatial viewing.
Yeah.
Did you always
Yeah.
see your artwork as three-dimensional in your head before you put it on the flat surface? And were you frustrated that it could only be flat?
I have always been able to do that. Yeah. And so like a lot of my traditional artwork did have already a 3D spin to it. And I did dabble with 3D and so forth because as someone who worked in the game industry for a while, I really had to, use Maya and so forth. But there was something that wasn't quite as visceral about it and immediate because, you got to create it and you got to render it and you got to go through this pipeline that's not incredibly intuitive. So, yeah, I mean, and I think I actually learned a lot from you, Brian, as well too, because when you got My Brother's Keeper, there was a really really nice way of looking at how you can actually adapt the 360 viewing to the actual story, and one of those things was how do I even direct the audience eye to a specific focus, and having the chance to look at your film and look at so many other people's films was really really nice in helping the rest of us pioneers in the Tiltbrush space to understand how to create immersive art.
Well,
So thank you.
I'll say you're welcome on behalf of the directors, Connor and Alex. But I also, the space that you have made is, and we should just go look and talk about it afterwards. Why don't we just do that, Allison?
Okay.
Yeah, let's take a look at the giant orange fish.
Yeah, that's
I
pretty
love your
awesome.
use of color. I always like everything with very vibrant colors. And I don't know if there's something with my eyes that I always want the color and the saturation popping on everything. But I love your use of color in that. And my biggest question is, where did that come from? Like, how did the giant orange fish come to life?
Well, that's kind of neat because I'm always looking at the absurd, and I kind of draw my inspiration from actually what I see on Facebook. Like I saw you one day walking your dog, and went, oh, the dog's connected to a leash. What else could be connected to a leash? And oh, they could put their head out there. And then Neerdra's daughter plays the harp, right? So okay, right, we'll throw in a harp. So a lot of times you may not know this, but I have incorporated a lot of what I see from your Facebooks into my artwork.
I think
Love
I
that.
think that is brilliant. And
Yeah.
I
Then I
that
Uh,
tell the player, I'm like, hey, you remember that?
wherever inspiration comes from, that is what makes art. You're like hit by something that you see. Yeah, just separate. I remember when I was working for Pittard Sullivan, one of the designers had done this beautiful, beautiful opening for Sky Movies, and I thought it was
Oh,
so beautiful. And then we were walking together in London, and we were walking through Leicester Square, and he said, "Look up, look to your left," and there were these three beautiful angels that on the top of this building. And I looked at
really?
him, and he goes, "Hey, inspiration has to come from somewhere." So the fact that you actually that's great, but doesn't mean I'm not going to be careful now, knowing that you are. No, just I'm kidding. But
I've been
I
looking at you
think
cook,
what's
Brian. I've been looking at you cooking.
but I think what's it's hard for us, of course, to have this experience in a video capture of the 3D environment. And it's so much more magnified when you're inside of it. So, for the people that have headsets, that have head mounted displays, where can they find this work? I know there's been a whole bunch of discontinuance with Google and with Daydream now, I read, and of course now open source for Tiltbrush. But where can people find and experience your work inside the headset?
Right now, I'm going to be making public a lot of my work at the poly.google.com site. And I'm fine with that. I mean, there are thoughts of people downloading it and so forth, but I'm not worried about it because I think people know me enough to know that, hey, if they saw my work, they'd be like, hey, that's Juliana's work. So I'm going to actually put it up public there. And if you've got an Oculus Quest or so forth, you can actually access that until Oculus goes away. I believe that's in the summertime anyway. So you got lots of time.
Wait, until
And by
what
then,
goes
some of
away?
the actual area where you can actually go in and access it from your Oculus Quest.
Got it.
I wouldn't
However,
worry
however, you and I
about
should probably talk about SideQuest
it.
so that you can get your work over to SideQuest because as an alternative place for distribution and content.
Okay, I'm gonna get back to you on that one.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. It's like, so funny because the industry changes so quickly
Yeah,
in terms of immersive. And when you're inside the industry, my experience has been you have to be quick. So here you are, an artist and a technologist. So your background in game design and all that incredibly useful, and your knowledge of technology. Because here you are trying to create, but in I think immersive, you have to be a combination of artist, technologist, entrepreneur, director,
Storyteller.
storyteller, and
hello.
and I just want to say, Juliana, that your work instantly grabs my attention. It's like I don't know if it's the use of color or the characters that are there, and it just this particular piece we watched so much fun, and I'm like, I actually don't comment that much on Facebook and social media. I kind of just listen and watch things go by, but I have not been able to comment or to love or to send a heart um, because I find it the work that I've seen, I find it tremendously interesting and uplifting. And
Great.
I think as a storyteller, your willingness to get in, and everybody has trauma in their lives, everybody has hardship in your life, and we're not going to make you go through your story here. But I don't know that there is an artist that hasn't experienced that, but the joy that's inside of you, because those were really hard times, but the joy that's inside of you never went away. This is just my observation. And to see it just come out, and not only that, your inherent curiosity. God, this is like I'm just raving about Juliana Love, but your inherent curiosity that keeps taking you and the people that are experiencing your work to the next level is just amazing.
Um, wow, I'm bored. How does one respond to that? Thank you so much. That really inspires me too, because this is COVID time, right? And we're doing everything alone. And I'm sitting in my helmet head. I call it the helmet head. And I don't hear anybody around me, and it's just me and the brush, and that's it. And so having some feedback like that really makes me feel good, especially because I have a real reason, an objective for doing the work that I do.
Mhm.
So,
I've got
yeah.
a question to add to that. Like in terms of your approach to the work, there may not be, but is there a deeper meaning? Like, do you have a sense of like, I'm very much into psychology of behavior,
Okay.
and is there a sense of like, do you know how you want your audience to feel after they take off the headset or while they're going through the experience? What's the deeper level there?
Well, but Brian is right, and you know this as well too, Allison, that I've experienced quite a few things in my life that have not been so easy to
Mhm.
deal with. And I think one of them, like aside from things like car accidents, which were not so great, there was one event that happened in 2016 that really turned my whole thought process around. And we had a fire that pretty much destroyed the house, and I post pictures on Facebook. I couldn't even believe it myself. And I remember um, actually, Jeff reached out to me at that point, and I was sitting in my car, and I didn't have a home, right? And I was, I looked around and I thought, I'm homeless. In 1 minute, I'm homeless.
Yep.
You know,
It
and that
seems one thing after another as well for you. You literally were just kind of getting over the car accident, and then there was the fire. Like it was before you could get up, you were getting punched again.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there are some things that, but then you have a first. I have a I believe in the divine, right? And then we talk about, especially in COVID, we were taking care of the physical. We're talking about the emotional. We're talking about, all these other the your career and all of that. But there are very few people actually talk about the relationship between you and the divine, however you define it.
Hmm.
So I put great trust in that, in belief that everything was going to turn out okay. And so that was the spark that led me to all the other artworks that helped me to express and define that joy and curiosity that you notice, Brian, in my work.
I also, even though I think the thing that I want to say is there was something about you, I totally get the relationship with the divine. I'm in the same place. But there was something about you that did not retreat from the community. Like you did not go away. You were there, you were kind of quiet. You only shared what had happened to you with specific people, but you didn't stop participating. And I think that's just really important to know because I never saw you seeing yourself as a victim, and I never saw you withdrawing to the point. I never saw you feeling sorry for yourself. I just,
Never. I've got to back that up. Never.
yeah, I just saw you continuing to want to learn. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like you knew you were going to have a future, so you were still going to prepare for that future in spite of the fact that you had monumental things that you had to deal with in the present. That's what I find inspiring.
Well, oh, thank you. I mean, I think the benefit goes to my family too, right? I mean, your friends and family. And I think it's really important, especially now, to kind of look around you and to choose who you'd like to to be around with, right? And because this is a time like, and I call this like the liminal space. Maybe we can talk about that and why this is important, so much more important than surviving a
Okay, I
fire
would
or
love for you to
surviving.
hold that
Oh,
thought because we're
okay.
actually at the end of the first segment. And when we come back in a week, and of course, we'll all be dressed the same. When we come back in a week, we will start with liminal space and take it from there because we have other two other pieces of your work that I just think is so important that people see, and more important than that, that people feel. And even though they won't be in the headsets, when they see it
Right.
this way, that was enough to say I got to go find this in the headset because I know that's going to be an amazing experience. So to the audience, please subscribe, hit that bell if you want to know the next episode, and we'll be back with Juliana Lowe, extraordinary artist and Tiltbrush artist, next week. Bye for now. Bye, Allison. Bye, Juliana.
Bye.
Bye.